I want you to know it's really nothing personal, but I guess it's payback time. You know, some people either love it or hate it. You know, I don't have to worry about anyone kind of like dinging my vehicle. And well, hello there everybody. Today what we're going to do is we're going to get a tune-up for this van. It's something that I do every year, and it's something that is a good pre-flight before I start driving all over Ontario this summer. You know, it's sort of like you want to be able to anticipate any issues that might be coming up, and a tune-up does that. For example, make sure all the fluids, the oil, brake stuff, transmission fluid, all those things that keep a vehicle, a car, running in good order. And yes, you do spend money, but what it does is it can help to prevent or mitigate any issues that might come up later on. So I think it's always important to get a yearly tune-up. And also, when the mechanic is looking, make sure you trust them, by the way, a trustworthy mechanic. When the mechanic is looking at your vehicle, they'll be able to point out some things that may require a fix or replacement later on down the road. And you know, the idea is with this van, I've spent a considerable amount of time building it out, and I definitely don't want it to break down, so I'm taking good care of it. You know, I don't drive it crazy. Actually, I don't even drive fast. I drive speed limit, and I drive on the right lane, and I typically take my time going anywhere just because I plan out my routes and stuff. It's just one of those things. And if I am wandering around, you know, I'm always considerate of other drivers. You know, if they want to pass, I'm not going to stay in the left lane. But if it's a country road, for example, and someone's behind me and you've got those broken lines that they can pass, I typically will pull over slightly to the right so they don't have to be in the middle of the lane when they're passing me, and I slightly slow down. And in some cases, I'll just roll down my window and tell them, hey, you know, go forward, bro. I'm not going to attempt to try to circumvent what you're trying to do when you're trying to pass me. So those are little driver courtesies that I think are important. But anyway, going back to the tune-up, the one thing for sure is just get my brakes checked, obviously, and I'm going to get my parking brake looked at, because when I put it on the other day, it was a little funky. So it still worked, okay, but it was a little tighter. So that's giving me indication that, you know, it might need to be replaced, and I'm okay with that. I've gotten so much use out of this van, and considering too, I got it at a really amazing price. I've gotten $1 million worth of fun out of this thing, and I've only spent a few $1,000s, a couple of $1,000s at the most. Wow, look at that. I think this truck just made the slowest turn in all of history. Remarkable. That's okay. That's okay. They sort of just stopped in the middle of the turn. Hope they're okay. Anyway, going back to the van. Yeah, so regarding the build, my van build, I know one of the things that came up as a question in one of the FB groups I was in was they didn't want to spend any money, rather they didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on a build and then only have the vehicle break down on them. And that's an extremely valid point. That's a valid question. That's a valid concern. And I'm going to tell you how to get around that. So before that happens, I'm going to pull in. I'm just going to turn off this video because I know there's a left turn coming up over there, and I'm not a big fan of being distracted whatsoever. I usually just keep this on and then cut everything out. Oh, and one other thing you should know. I finally got an SD card. Now, a few of you had asked me, what's an SD card? An SD card really is a storage device. It's a tiny storage device that goes into your phone, and it allows you to take longer videos, more pictures, and so on and so forth. It's just extra storage. It's sort of like, think of it as a giant suitcase for all the files that take up room on your phone. So that's the best way I can describe it. So it'll allow me to do these videos without things sort of just cutting off at the very end because I ran out of room. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to edit out all the other stuff after this, and I'll see you guys soon. Okay, so I'm parked, and I'm just gonna go into the store right now just to pick up some stuff, some supplies. I'm planning on maybe going away for a weekend for maybe a couple of days, maybe 2.5 days. If I can get some time off work, that'd be amazing. Because I think I used up all of my time for work because that time I got sick, right? So it's just how that goes. But for now, I'm gonna pick up some supplies. And one of the things I do is when I park, I usually park far away and in the middle of the parking lot, you know, a safe spot, obviously, like usually where there's a light pole. That way, you know, I don't have to deal with, you know, with people colliding into my vehicle. But, you know, although I know a couple of times, it's just part and parcel of how this stuff works. That you're going to get issues when in whatever parking lot you go to. For example, I got a slight ding at the side of my van, but you know, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Okay, so I'm in a big box parking lot and I'm just parked right there. There's maybe that truck behind me there, and that's about it. And what's nice about being able to park out here is, one, you got a nice walk. Secondly, you know, I don't have to worry about anyone kind of like dinging my vehicle. Not that it's like an amazing vehicle or anything, but still, a ding here and there, it's never a good thing, right? This van has taken me everywhere, all over Ontario. And I think that's a huge deal for me. I've saved thousands of dollars, I'm not even exaggerating, on hotel costs, motel costs, and any type of cost associated with staying somewhere. Actually, I think in 2020, 2021, I didn't stay at any hotel whatsoever. Not that they were open, obviously. You know, but I have to admit, knowing that I could sort of just take off somewhere and have a place to stay, I just need to find a parking spot, you know, somewhere. And there's always somewhere. There's always a place where you can park for a few hours and get some sleep, right? Versus having to stay at a hotel. And it's definitely much more comfortable in my minivan camper van versus like in a car or a van that doesn't have this homey feel to it. And I think it's one of the best things I ever did. You know, make this minivan camper van home away from home. You know, it's like I'm constantly bringing my living room or my home with me. It's sort of like a turtle. But really though, there's just so many advantages, and I wish I had done it sooner, but I think I did it at the right time. And I think the impetus, or what sort of like made things start to happen, was the beginning of the pandemic. You know, when I said, you know, I want to try this, and it was, the timing was good as well, because all those times that I went to a restaurant or went for somewhere to eat and you couldn't stay inside, I just ate in here and it was like super comfortable. And there's my home on wheels. It's looking a little janky this morning, but that's okay. All right, the lights are with us, guys. The lights are with us. Basically, I mean, it's so exciting, right? To be able to pass through 4 or 5 lights without having to stop, right? It's actually quite amazing, especially, you know, in suburbia where you have all these lights all the time, every half kilometer. It's almost insane. But you know, our luck may be running out right now because I'm about to slow down, because it looks like it's going to be, to slow down out there. I'm going to be stopping up over there. So, but that's okay. I'm going to change lanes, and I'll just stay in the left lane because I'm going to be on my way. See if I can exit off to a highway or something. I guess it's payback time. So far, every light that I've come across, the last 2, I've had to stop, but that's part and parcel of travel, right? So I've got a few plans for this summer, and I'm looking to explore out a bit more crown land camping. I've been to a few. I don't have big experience with it, but it's something that I would like to get a little more experience. I also know that there are some parts of crown land that, or it appears like it's crown land, but you're not allowed to park there, and it can get pretty competitive in terms of the space. The other thing too is if you happen to find one and you park and there's a noisy group that is right next to you, that's going to be an issue. So I like to just be in a quiet area. I like to just chill out and do some work, like write my little stories, right? Things like that. And if I can, go for a hike around the area. And one of my concerns has been, you know, when you're traveling solo, for example, there's a few of them. One of them is Foresty Forest. I don't know if you've ever seen, if any of you have seen his videos. Actually, I think many of you have seen his videos. He's a national treasure in Canada. Just a lot of fun stuff. I remember watching him on one of his trails, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, I mean, all it takes is one slip and that's going to be an issue, right? And I always wonder, when you're hiking up by yourself, you really have to establish a lot of caution, like some extreme, like above normal caution, because you're by yourself. And I do know Foresty Forest has a GPS locator, so for emergencies. And I also know, I would imagine he's very careful. You know, he's done a lot of these hikes up in the mountains, going to a peak and stuff like that, and he's been doing really well. So I think he's a pretty smart guy when it comes to travel. You know, obviously for me, whenever he's traveling in a remote area, and I'm thinking bears, wolves, wild animals, and that's going to be a tough thing to negotiate, especially if a bear's running after you. And Foresty Forest also has a little companion, a wonderful dog named Rocco, and I believe the dog is oh my goodness, I forgot what type of dog. It's a terrier of some sort, but it's a small dog, and it's really, really cute, and it's brought a bit of mirth and fun to the channel. And I would imagine Foresty Forest's life as well, his name is Simon, so Simon's life. So, but yeah, a really good YouTuber. I really enjoy his stuff. There's a lot out there, a lot of really good YouTubers, and I think what I really appreciate is they've taken time out of their life. They've shared a slice of their life with people like us to sort of see what it's like, and we can vicariously travel or see beautiful scenery. And obviously the camera work is really good. He's gotten amazingly very well. He's done really well with his camera work. For myself, I don't have that. I don't have the equipment. I don't have the I guess the skill set or the time to go into all that. So a lot of my stuff is what I'm doing right now. And also, like, who really wants to see a ton of suburbia buildings, right? Although I think Toronto would be pretty interesting. I think I'd like to take you guys out to Toronto so you can see it. If you're not from Toronto, there's all kinds of fun places there, and I thought some urban hiking would be good. I'm going to stay within this area, and then a few times I'll head up north, which I completely love. It's like it's a different vibe altogether, and that's where I can really relax, because I'm away from a lot of the stuff that you would see around here, and it's just beautiful up there. It's probably funny the way I'm doing these videos. It's like hat on, hat off, and we're at another light, which is okay, because it allows us to sort of like gather our thoughts, but at the same time concentrate what's going on. You know, I thought of getting a lift for this van at the back there, but the cost was going to be about $500, $600 to install, along with the actual lift itself, which I think is reasonable considering, you know, what it's going to do, right? But I would rather put that towards maybe another possibly Silver Cabin Part 2. And this is where I'm going to talk to you about, whoa, wait a sec, bro. I want to talk to you about this truck kind of like went into my lane. It happens, right? But this is where we were talking about people building their van build on a vehicle, and they're concerned that, you know, should I buy a new vehicle because the chances of it breaking down will be a lot less. Like, they didn't want to invest, and I don't know who would want to, too much money on building it out only to have that particular vehicle or van break down. That's a very valid concern. And my answer to that was, my van, for example, is modular in that, my van build rather is modular in that I can take about, say, 90% or so, 95%. I think a lot. I could probably take this entire van build and transfer it over to another 2008 Dodge Grand Caravan, or a 2010, or even very, very similar. I think the part that I would have the most difficulty is the ceiling, my beautiful ceiling, the ceiling that I'm so proud of, right? So I would have the most difficulty trying to transfer that over, but even then, that's not even difficult. So I could probably take this exact build and put it into into another Dodge Grand Caravan. You know, a few little caveats. For example, the side of the van, I would need to sort of drill into the side of the van to sort of secure it. So what I did was I created this frame initially, and then I built it on top of that, and the frame was secured to the walls of the van. I didn't take out the trimming, okay? So it worked out well. It worked out really well, and I could sort of turn this back into its original state, its bare state, and most likely lighter as well, but not that much lighter, right? So that's one way I guess you could approach building out your van build, is make it as modular as possible and don't commit so much. But I know that when you're adding insulation, you are literally committing totally to your van, everything, right? And that's another thing when it comes to insulation. I know a lot of van lifers, insulation, like, it's really, really important to them. And I think it's important too. But to me, when I think of van lifing, traveling, I almost consider this like a metal tent. I've been camping in cold weather. I've been winter camping. I've been summer camping. And like anything else, right? It's sort of like creating a tent inside this van. It's a metal tent, and you're going to do everything you can to stay cool or stay warm. And I've been able to do both without having to add any type of insulation to this van, and that's a huge deal for me, right? That's a huge deal. However, I could see that if you want to maximize on the space, then invest in a few $100s in insulation, probably like $800. I could see spending about $800 to $1,000 just on insulating the van, and so I could see why it can cost a lot of money to put this stuff together. But for me, I've always been about the budget, but I've also been about, this van really was so that I could chill out, rest up, find my fortress of solitude at a trailhead or anywhere. And it's become my home away from home when I travel. And so that's a huge deal for me. It's already 100 times better than having just a plain Jane van or vehicle like this. Here I can actually hold out for several days at a time. But I can also see that if I'm going to be doing, let's say, fully living out of my van, oh, that's another thing, by the way. You live out of your van. You don't live in your van. And, you know, I actually spend more time outside of my van than I do inside of my van. Especially if I'm up north. Like, I mean, I'm there to, this is used to sleep in, to cook, to relax, to at a trailhead right after a long trail and you're tired. You can just chill out here, and then afterwards head over to your camp. I mean, it's just really, really, really comfortable, and it's the best way for me to be, right? And so even if you're spending just a day here at different places, you have a place to stay. You don't have to chime into a hotel. Granted, it's also a different experience, right? A hotel has the full shower, has the full everything. This is like budget. This is, you know, really quote unquote roughing it compared to going to a hotel. So that's something to keep in mind. I remember one time I was driving for several hours and I was really tired. I was tired, and I just pulled over to a gas station and I asked the gas station attendant if I could just take a nap, and they told me, yeah, just take a nap over there right beside where I'm parked, and that's all I had to do. Other times I would rest at a rest stop, a rest area. You know, there's all kinds of places. Within suburbia and Toronto, the GTA, maybe not so much. Although, I think I made a video about where you could actually stay and sleep. You know, if you are in suburbia, let's say for example, like in my scenario, I'm working full time. I've got a home base, which is sweet and amazing, right? And if you don't have a home base in the way of like a one room or something, or maybe an entire house, which is always amazing, right? But then again, what's not amazing is the mortgage that comes with it. Unless you've sorted things out the way you think they should be sorted out. But that's a complete different ball of wax I'm looking at. You know, if you can get a hold of a driveway, okay? Obviously, I think the best scenario is if you are working full time, you know, if you can find yourself a room, a one bedroom, a shared bedroom. Although having roommates can be difficult because sometimes they're not really that great. Okay, some of them are not that great. So the other option could be you just find yourself a driveway, or find a ways to be able to work remotely. And that's one other thing I wanted to look into, is being able to work remotely as I travel. Like I could work remotely because I'm a programmer, right? Granted, I am integrating myself back into the industry in a bigger way. I left the industry, then I'm back at it again. But right now, I am working full time. I'm sorting everything out in my little life. And when it gets sorted out, it'll be really fun that day when I can sort of say, hey, I'm done. Everything's in place. Everything's intact. Let's see where we can go from here. There's going to be a lot of changes. A lot of changes. And I'm scared of the changes, but I'm also excited and knowing what can happen next. And here you guys are, being with me. I'm taking you guys along with me, and you guys are sort of watching all this possibly unfold. And it's been about at least a year since I started talking about heading out west, and I'm definitely getting closer to my goal, but not as close as I'd like it to be. You know, like anything else, there's always a delay. You know, something always happens that you never even imagined or expected, and that is just the way life goes, right? And so you have to roll with it, as it were, and not panic, and just plan against it, execute against it, or in some cases work with it and see how far it goes. So as for me, I think it's easier for me to work with it versus go up against it, as long as it doesn't completely infringe on my original goals. If it's diametrically opposed to what I'm doing, then, you know, forget it. It's not going to happen. I will work against it. So just some thoughts there. So I'm finally parked here, and I'm just waiting to get started. I typically arrive early for work, usually 15 minutes, a half an hour early, because I don't like to rush. And I'm actually drinking some instant coffee. And I usually do a pour over, but I thought this morning I would try some instant, and somebody had told me that instant coffee is starting to actually taste pretty good. And actually, it's actually not that bad. And that's weird. Usually I'm not an instant coffee drinker. I mean, I've tried it a few times, but now this one here is not that bad. It's one of the more popular ones here, and I know some people either love it or hate it. It's Tim Hortons, and somewhere around here, I don't know where I put it. Oh, here it is. Hold on. Let me show you. Ouch. This thing's hot. The mug is hot. So it's this brand here. It's premium. And because my camera is flipped around, it shows as backwards. And so what I like to typically do is just decompress. You know, I've been in traffic, and I'm just parked here, and there's a nice breeze. It's not too hot. If it's too hot, I'll turn on my air conditioner. And I do have a video about the air conditioner. It's from a company called Rigid HVAC. I am completely happy with it. It is not an air conditioner in that it will cool the entire van. What it is, it's a really amazing cold air spot cooler. And you can compare it to, it's just like a fan, except it's actually cold air versus warm air blowing on you. So it's helped me get through some really hot, humid nights and trying to sleep. And you know, as I'm waiting here, I found this. I don't know if you guys remember this thing. I've used it everything as a camera holder to holding up the tube for the air conditioner. And it's a really simple thing. It's got a clamp that I got from the dollar store. I think they were like 2 for $1. It was really, really cheap. And this is all just a box. And I made this thing, and I can clip it anywhere. You know, I can clip it anywhere. And, you know, it holds my camera sometimes, though. But a few fixes. The fan behind me, for some reason, the electrical, the wire has become loose, and that's because I taped it. And while it took almost a couple of years, I finally realized where it's going to stay. It's going to stay back there, so it's going to have some level of permanence on it. So I'm prepared to merge that wire, solder it together. And you know, I don't even have to solder it. I can just just tape it up really well. Because I do have to move it around. I do have to move it around so that I could point it at me, right? So that's important. Look at that, everyone's starting to go into work now. Well, I've got about 10 more minutes. I better finish my coffee. That's right, folks. When you have a minivan camper van, a home away from home, when you've got a van build, every place is a comfy place. So while waiting, I just checked my Instagram. Yeah, by the way, my Instagram is @silvercabin.ca, and there's always some crypto guru who wants to follow me and wants to give me all kinds of advice on crypto. And granted that crypto has taken a huge fall right now, you know, it's going to be a hard sell. Oh, and one other thing that I need to mention is a few people have asked me where I work and where exactly I am. I want you to know it's really nothing personal, but that's information. Actually, it is personal, but it's something that I wouldn't necessarily reveal, and I don't think it's a smart idea to reveal at this time. You know, you just got to be cautious, right? So in terms of my work, my full-time work right now, I do work in a managerial role, so it's not completely topping me out physically. But I do work, okay, I do actually do work, and I think it's important to have some type of job that that you somewhat enjoy or gives you enough benefit that you're going to stay there. The great thing is I work with some really, really amazing people, great people that I would even venture to call as friends at work, okay? Because I know that the reality is there's always this ongoing thing where people say those people at work aren't your friends, right? And I think that could be true. However, there have been people who have left this workplace and have kept in contact with me, which is, yeah, they were actually my friends. And then there were people who actually they contact me more than some family members, that's like really bizarre, right? Well, maybe not so much, right? But yeah, I think it's possible to go to a workplace and develop friendships as well. You know, I know some people they found their significant other at work. Okay, speaking of work, I think it's time for me to go. But before I go, I'm looking directly at the camera. I want you to know you are awesome. Remember that. And you know what? One other thing, you know what's fantastic? The fact that I have an SD card and it's going to take a lot for it to run out. So that's another very cool thing. And again, you're awesome. Bye-bye.